Hi, hi everyone. Thank you for coming to join us today. And thank you everyone from the Thai team from the NEA, National Ecosystem Assessment of Thailand. And I'd like to extend my welcome to the NEA from Malawi. And I thank especially for accepting our invitation in this meeting today for the peer-to-peer exchange between the two countries that are in the same process of NEA. Let us move on to the overview of today, the agenda today, what we will be covering. All right. Okay. The processes today will begin with the introduction by Joseph. He will be introducing the NEA team from Thailand and Malawi, and also the team from UNED and UNESCO. And after that, we will be presenting the presentation from both Malawi and Thailand by Kun Alice and Dr. Narumon to share experiences in the scoping process. Excuse me. And we will also be covering the factors and the challenges in the process of assessment and evaluation. And then we will have an interactive session moderated by Kun Joseph. And we'll be reflecting on the process of NEA in the assessment process. And that will follow by another interactive session by Kun Noah on the topic of author selection and coordination of NEA today. Thank you. The air condition was blowing on me, sorry. And then we will end with sharing insights from Malawi by Dr. Lillian on organizing trialogue and inviting ILK holders to participate in the process of this trialogue. And that will be the end of our today's meeting. Let me pass the microphone on to Kun Joseph to run the interactive section now. Thank you, Kun Joseph.
Thank you so much, RK, for the great support and great to see everyone. Good morning from Paris. Good morning to Malawi colleagues. Good afternoon to Thailand colleagues. Good to see you all. And thank you so much for joining this session. I'll be talking a bit more about the session later. But I thought maybe before we do the introduction, we maybe try to understand our scoping process better and also to challenge ourselves to see how we know each other's much better. So we're gonna start by an icebreaker activity through Menti activities. So if we could have the Menti slide. Okay, I think we can start with Menti slide if that is ready. If not, then I am happy to switch. Yeah, thank you. If I can request the RK to post the link in the chat. Yes, for the online participants, if you could go to the chat and click on the link, it's going to take you to the first question. And the first question is, in your own assumption, like looking at the Malawi and Thailand National Ecosystem Assessment, because we know they have been engaging indigenous and local knowledge holders, how many do you think they have engaged in total in both Malawi and Thailand? So is it between 50 to 100? See, this is a combination of the two countries, so Malawi plus Thailand. So you're gonna give it some few more minutes. And I hope also for the participants in the room are able to scan the QR code and respond as well. Yes, give it some few. So majority of the participants are saying between 100 to 200. Then there's 300 to 400. So majority are saying between 100 and 200. Alice, do you want to tell the participants how many people were involved in Malawi, and Achanarumon, how many RK holders were involved in the scoping process in Thailand, so that we can get the cumulative total and we see how many got it right. Alice, can I start with you?
For Malawi, we involved about, let's say, over 200 ILK holders.
Yes, that is indeed correct. So Malawi alone was over 200. Achanarumon, for the activities, how many did you engage both in the interviews and also the scoping workshops? Yeah, that's correct. So the correct answer actually was over 400. I think both countries was about like 420, both of them combined. So this tells you how both countries have done great work in terms of engaging indigenous peoples and local communities just in the scoping process. And if we can maintain the same momentum in the evaluation process, then we are going to achieve much better. We can go to the next question. So the next question is to better help understand the cultural values that we have in different countries. So if we could have the screen again. So we're just gonna use the same Menti. So just follow the same link or the same QR code. And then the second question is, which animal in your country or community holds a higher cultural value? So which animal in your country or community holds a high cultural value? Yeah, if it's possible to proceed to the answer session. Is it possible to project some answers, LK?
So I'm noticing on my end is that we do not have the options to answer on the link from our side of things. So I'm not sure whether we need to refresh the page.
So maybe as we refresh the page, I'll start off by, putting some people on. I'd probably I'll start with Dr. Pech. Dr. Pech, what is your opinion about this? Like, which animal in your community or in Thailand you think has a high cultural value? Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Pech. Anyone else who want to join from Thailand team to contribute? Wipada, Ajahn Wipada, can I put you on the spot? Or we can post in that, yeah.
Let me answer in Thai. As for animals, I think it would be an elephant, the elephants, because the elephants have been with Thailand for a long time. It has been quite significant in terms of with the ecosystem as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajahn Wipanda. Maybe we can now hear some reflection from Malawi team. Professor Moase, do you want to give it a go?
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think I'll talk about the ones that casually in my area, we have so much respect of basically the python snake. The python snake, we don't just kill it anyhow. We associate it, especially in riverine areas where there are so many trees and the like. We have belief that it actually keeps some water for us, for the rivers that flows. So there are some beliefs that if you just kill it, then eventually if we are having a well that where we could be getting water, it can dry up. So we normally don't just kill a python. It's actually spared. It's a snake that once you kill, there are beliefs that you could actually get bad luck because it's like you've gone against the ancestors who keep water for us. I think that's what we have in our culture. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you so much. That's quite interesting, Professor Mose. Thank you so much. And I also can see Noor and Nadumon also putting some few interesting answers on the chat. So maybe we can have the last one. Maybe I put Dr. Lavmo on the spot from Malawi. Thank you so much, Dr. Lavmo. I think I did love all these answers, and it shows that the diversity of different animals, because the answers, the answer that we have give range from mammals, reptiles, as well as birds. So it means like different types of animals, of diversity of animals, have actually different cultural values, which is actually quite interesting. Maybe we can have the last question. So the last question focus on the plant, and maybe because of time here, we are only going to maybe get like one response from the team, or maybe have the answers on the chat. So again, in your country or community, which plant species do you think has a high cultural value? Maybe if you can put those answers in the chat, I can reflect on them. And then as we put these answers, so we can start with the introduction because of the time. So I'll pass over to Addis to do a quick introduction of the Malawi team so that we know who is in the room. And then later on, I'll pass over to Dr. Page to also quickly introduce the Thai team. Dr. Addis, if I may politely request you to introduce the Malawi team so that we save some time. Addis, over to you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I'll be introducing the Malawi team. We have actually Professor Mwase. He's the lead author for terrestrial ecosystem. Professor Mwase, please, if you can say hi to the group and your role in the NEA, please.
Addis, if it's okay, then I may request that we just request them to switch on their camera. So maybe we save a bit of time if that is agreeable with you.
Yes, yes, please. Okay, colleagues, can we switch on your yeah, okay. Okay, I think I can continue. Prof. Mwase, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I'm sure they can also see me now. I'm not
Yes,
sure whether,
yes.
yeah, though it appears a bit dark, but I think I can now be seen, yeah?
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you, Prof.
Thank you so much, colleagues.
Yeah, that's Professor Mwase. He's the lead author for terrestrial ecosystems. And we also have Dr. Lilian Chimpepo, who is the co-chair for National Ecosystem Assessment, Malawi, and is the IPES focal point. Lilian, please say hi to the team.
You're muted, Lillian.
Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Lilian. We'll proceed to Mr. Chris Campani, the head of environmental management department at Lungwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. He's also the co-chair for National Ecosystem Assessment. Crispin, say hi to the team.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon.
Thank you, Crispin. And we also have the lead author for IOK Technical Working Group, Dr. Lavo Masbuko. Our lead author, IOK lead author, Dr. Lavo Masbuko, please say hi to the team. Doc, you're muted. Please unmute your mic. Yes. Thank you, Doc. Thank you. And I also want to introduce Eva Kabadwai. She's the member of Indigenous and Local Knowledge Technical Working Group. Eva, please say hi to the team. Thank you so much, Eve. And then we have Ethel Kamba Chikoti. He's also a member of IOK Technical Working Group. Ethel, say hi. Yeah, that's Ethel. Yes. Thank you so much, Ethel. And we also have Esther. He's also a member of IOK Technical Working Group. Esther, say hi to the team. Esther, are you with us? Okay, while we're waiting for Esther, we also have Wellman Kondowe. He's also a member of IOK Technical Working Group. Wellman, please say hi to the team. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you, Wellman. I think that's all from here, unless if I've left somebody out, but for now, who have I missed? Okay, Opson. We also have Opson. Opson, say hi. He's also a member of IOK Technical Working Group. Sorry about that, Opson. And Matthew Zimfune. Matthew, say hi to the team. He's also a member of IOK. Thank you so much. And I think for now, that's the team from Malawi. Others will be joining along the way. Thank you so much. Let me give it back to you, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Addis, although you forgot to introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Alice Kamwamba. I'm the Project Officer for National Ecosystem Assessment. And I'm really pleased to interact with Thailand. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Addis, for that great introduction. I pass over to now Dr. Pech to introduce the Thailand team. If then we may request like Dr. Pech, over to you.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Padam Sang and glad to be here. Yeah, thank you. We can now. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. What language should I be speaking? Okay. My name is Narumon. I am from the university called Chulalongkorn, and I have a team with me. The team that is with me in this room now is Kun Paladet from an institute in Chulalongkorn as well. And Kun Bo, just her nickname, Kun Bo is a student of master degree, and also Kun, sorry, I didn't catch her name. She's working as a research in a province in Thailand, and 3 persons joining online. อาจารย์สายสนิท from Phuket Institute in beautiful Phuket now, but she's joining us in Bangkok tomorrow. And อาจารย์เต้ย and อาจารย์สมฤดี she's specialized in marine science at Chulalongkorn here as well. And we have Kun Ning, Kun Natapat, who is in Phuket Island now. Kun Ning is with the community Urakravoi, which is an indigenous community, and she focuses on ILK. That is for our team. Thank you. Thank you, อาจารย์นฤมล. I see Dr. Vishin in the room now. Can you introduce yourself? Hi, everyone. My name is Vishin Supala. I am at biology at Ramkhamhaeng University, and I am on the team of research of this project, and I'm helping Ajahn Thamasak working on the status and trends of changes of the marine ecosystem. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Vishin is also helping us mobilize many issues, including OECM and also global diversity framework of 30 by 30 issue, and GIG as well. Kun GIG and Kun Anek are also on our team.
Okay.
Okay. Hi.
ขอโทษนะคะ
sorry,
ขอโทษค่ะ เรามีอีกท่านหนึ่งค่ะที่เป็น
we have another person
contributor
who is a
author
contributing
Dr. Levadi
author, who is Dr. Sorry, I didn't catch her name. I will tell you in a second. Maybe you introduce yourself first. My name is
Vipada ค่ะ my role is project coordinator
project coordinator.
and Dr. Levadi
Hi, Revadi Jarung Ratana Phong ค่ะ. I am a economist. Hi, I am Anek Sopon. I'm from Chulalongkorn as well. Anyone else? Gig? Do we have everyone here? Is that everyone? I think that's everyone. All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pech and your team for that great introduction. I now pass over to RK for the next session. RK, over to you.
Sorry. Thank you, Joseph. Let me move on to the presentation of Dr. Alice on the topic of sharing the scoping activities, considering the challenges and opportunities with us here. let me pass the microphone on to Alice, and I'll be sharing the screen. If you say next, Alice, I will be changing to the next slides for you. Over to you, Alice.
Thank you so much. Okay. Hello everyone. I'm Alice. So I'll be actually sharing the insights from Malawi on how we've captured IOK in our scoping report for evaluation. Go to the next slide. Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let me start by saying Malawi actually launched its national ecosystem assessment in, not the previous slide, please. So we started our national ecosystem assessment in 2020. Okay, go to the previous slide. The second slide, please. Yes, thank you, that one. Yeah, so we have two implementing partners. We have the Environmental Affairs Department standing in for the government and is actually offering policy advice. And we also have Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, which is the implementing agency. When we started our national ecosystem assessment, we started by engaging stakeholders. During our stakeholder engagement, the first stakeholder engagement during the inception, we actually identified main thematic areas of focus. So together with the stakeholders, we identified biodiversity and ecosystem services and land and degradation and restoration. So having identified those main thematic areas, we also, together with the stakeholders, prioritize the ecosystem types for the assessment to focus on. So we identified the aquatic ecosystem, terrestrial ecosystem, and wetlands ecosystem. So within these three ecosystem types, we formulated technical working groups. So we have those three technical working groups: the aquatic technical working group, terrestrial technical working group, and wetlands technical working group. So we have experts under aquatic technical working group, experts under terrestrial technical working group, and experts under wetlands technical working group, which are authors. And we also identified the lead authors within this technical working group. And further, we also formulated another technical working groups of indigenous and local knowledge, which is now cross-cutting, looking on at indigenous issues within those three technical working groups. Go to the next slide, please. The next slide, please. Oh, thank you so much. So we have conducted a number of activities under indigenous and local knowledge. We engaged a lot of ILK holders, including local community members. And throughout our engagements, we've managed to conduct 3 framing workshops across the country. We had 1 framing workshop in the northern part of Malawi, another framing workshop in the central part of Malawi, and another one in the southern part of Malawi. So we identified 8 districts across the country, and these districts were identified based on the type of ecosystems that they have in their districts. And after these framing workshops, we further conducted follow-up meetings because we had some other issues that needed to be looked into. So we conducted the follow-up meetings in these 8 districts. We managed to have dialogues with the IOK holders, the elderly, and also youth and other local community members. Basically, we had managed to engage over 200 IOK holders, And during these follow-up meetings, we also managed to identify 3 potential sites, IOK sites. And from what came out from these engagements, it helped us to come up with policy questions. We drew policy questions from the outcomes of these activities, and we developed a documentary on IOK activities, and published 1 article on IOK as well. So as we were finalizing our scoping process, we successfully conducted a trialogue. The IOK part was actually active, but there was an active participation from the IOK holders and local community members. And then from the 3 IOK potential sites, we developed case studies from these sites, and they are still in draft form. And we also managed to formulate IOK technical working group. Within the technical working group, we also have IOK champions to be part of the technical working group. We have been also lobbying for a representation of IOK holder in our National Biodiversity Advisory Committee. And I'm happy to communicate that we've been successful. Our National Biodiversity Advisory Committee has a representation of IOK, which is a milestone to the assessment team. And also IOK holders, we are also, as I have already said, we identified champions, local champions, IOK champions into the technical working group. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we want to share with you how we captured IOK in our scoping report. Having completed the scoping process, we drafted the scoping report, presented it to the stakeholders, we got input, and then the scoping report was approved by the National Biodiversity Steering Committee. The scoping report actually gives the scope for assessment policy questions on which the assessment will be based on, as well as the areas to be covered during evaluation. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in the scoping report, we have presented policy questions. We have broader policy questions, and these policy questions were crafted in a way that they captured both science and IOK. And having drafted the broader policy questions, in the scoping report, we also presented the specific policy questions. These specific policy questions are presented based on the thematic areas that I've already talked about, the aquatic, terrestrial, as well as the wetlands. So these specific policy questions as well, they captured the science and ILK. We also presented ILK in the methodology. The methodology is inclusive of both the science and ILK issues. And we've explained in the scoping report how we engaged ILK, how we conducted all activities under ILK, and including all the policy questions, lessons learned. And also in the executive summary, it also briefly described what has been captured in the main report under ILK. Next slide, please. Thank you. During the course of our scoping process and engaging IOK holders as well as the local communities, we've identified the number of opportunities. We've seen that there is an increased IOK holder sense of ownership with the assessment. We started by presenting the assessment, raising awareness to the local communities, to IOK holders. And through this interaction, we were welcomed, and the local communities and IOK holders managed to embrace the process and own it and be part of the assessment. We took them on board. And we saw that there was also flexibility to share the vast experience and knowledge of particular ecosystem in their areas. They talked about the historical background, the changes that have been happening over the years, their traditional practices, as well as their traditional beliefs. So we were able to capture those, and this helped the assessment team to identify IOK thematic areas through the issues that came out from the IOK holders as well as local community members. And this further opened doors for further data collection as part of interaction in the evaluation stage. So we've already started engaging them, planning with them on how we will conduct the data collection. Next slide, please. And also, by strengthening these partnerships, we have established a deeper partnership between IOK knowledge holders and scientists, because our engagement with the IOK holders involved also the authors, the scientists, as well as policymakers. And we've also have that IOK inclusiveness in the Biodiversity Advisory Committee, which now will work better for us in, identifying and adopting the issues that came out under IOK, as we will be actually drafting our SPMs during evaluation. We are happy that the IOK will be captured in the SPMs. And it also helped to bring out issues on biological conservation, as well as, ensuring the sustainable livelihood and use of resources, culture, governance, as well as the economic development, and those to be included in the SPMs. Another slide, please. Thank you. Another opportunity is that those scientists working in areas where indigenous and local knowledge they have an important role. Honestly, it is difficult for knowledge systems to work synergistically because of the differences between their systems. So this actually brings challenges in terms of developing the capacities. But then the role of scientists in understanding the holistic approach is also an opportunity, the holistic approach of the IOK knowledge holders. It has also increasingly created awareness for the need to learn how best to contribute to inclusive and equitable research on decision making. And this has also helped form a governance where power and responsibility for management and decision making is shared between government and resource users through partnerships. And this is key to informing policy development. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So upon the approval of the scoping report, as the assessment team, we now started looking at the indigenous and local knowledge authors through the establishment of IOK, a technical working group within the assessment process. And also, as I've already mentioned about the National Advisory Committee, inclusiveness of IOK, has been a plus to the assessment team. And this is a very big opportunity to address issues under IOK. Next slide, please. However, throughout the process of scoping and engagement of our IOK holders and local communities, we've come across a number of challenges. The first challenge was actually in identifying IOK experts for the technical working group. It wasn't easy for us because when we had circulated the call for expression of interest to take part in the assessment in recruiting authors, we didn't receive any expression of interest under ILK. So we had formulated technical working groups and aquatic. We had experts from aquatic, terrestrial, and wetlands, but there wasn't any for the ILK. So we had to change the approach. We had to now hunt for them. So we approached the lead author, Dr. Lovemore, in the Department of Culture and Tourism, to ask if he can be interested to join the assessment team and lead the IOK technical working group, which he agreed. And through him, it's when we identified the other members of the technical working group, IOK technical working group, and they all expressed interest to be part of the IOK technical working group as experts. And also the lobbying for the inclusion of IOK representation in the National Advisory Committee was also a challenge, but we were lucky because we had other stakeholders who were within the team constituting the advisory committee. So we lobbied, we talked to them, and then we were granted our request to include IOK representative in the advisory committee. And we have some lessons that we've learned along the way. We've learned that, bringing IOK and science into the dialogue and mutual understanding helps to generate the best existing knowledge that is useful for both knowledge systems. And this also has helped to address common problems and also has created an opportunity of improving the existing knowledge for a wide range of areas of biodiversity and ecosystems. The issue of gender inclusiveness, gender consideration in the assessment is key. It brings out actually variations of knowledge because women and men, they actually differ in the way they hold knowledge. They consider what is important to them. And what is important to men is not what is important to women. So we got different views on how they value ecosystems and natural resources. Next slide, please. Thank you. So having completed the scoping process and also having our scoping report adopted and validated, we had to now connect from scoping to expert evaluation. So we planned and conducted capacity building with all technical working groups, including the IOK technical working group, to prepare the experts for evaluation stage. That was done, and we started planning to conduct feedback session and data collection. This will be done in the next month, and this involved all the technical working, the lead authors from all technical working groups and IOK technical working group members. And we've also planned to train the IOK technical working group on expert evaluation. And we have planned several IOK technical working group Zoom meetings to brainstorm, to plan, and to draw a roadmap on how we're going to conduct the evaluation. So during our evaluation stage, we're going to do the data collection. We will synthesize the knowledge and to develop technical report and have a summary for policymakers in the process of evaluation. Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you so much. And in brief, that's how Malawi team is actually engaging the ILK and trying to bring together the information from ILK. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alice, for the in-depth insight today, so we can understand what the Malawi team are doing now. Before begin with the questions, let me have Ajahn Narumon present from the Thai team first, before we have the interactive session afterwards. Please, Ajahn Narumon, over to you. Thank you. Thank you for the insights and experience from Malawi team. They will be most useful for our working work. We are the Tranche 3 and we have begun NEA process slightly after the Malawi team. Sorry, yes, thank you. And we have chosen the theme, or we have chosen the ecosystem to be assessed, the coastal and sea ecosystems. In terms of ILK, we are scoping that the target communities are small fishermen and also sea indigenous groups that they have been living on the coastal area for a long time. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, now we can see the screen. Now it's blank screen.
Yes. One moment, the PowerPoint isn't showing up. Yes, right. Yes. The PowerPoint right here. Sorry for switching the PowerPoint because the one that was being projected didn't show some of the slides. Right. Thank you. Right. As for ILK that we're working on, will include the identifying 6 communities. And once we have done the preliminary research, we have conducted 4 workshops and we have chosen the groups. Right. The communities that are both indigenous sea people and also indigenous groups that do small fishery. And we have done the scoping report already, and tomorrow will be the day that we receive feedbacks from organizations and also NGO and also from the private sector. For the part that we like to hear from the Malawi team is the case in which for Thailand, the scoping report is divided into different chapters from introduction, scope and geographical boundaries, key policy questions, the chapter on methodological approach, and the chapter on marine biodiversity and ecosystem service assessment in Thailand. And the 5th chapter is a big chapter, and we'll be covering overview, status, trends, and future dynamics of marine biodiversity and ecosystems, direct and indirect pressure, impacts and responses, also on biodiversity and ecosystem services. And the ILK chapter is 5.5, and we have chosen here because we like to emphasize both for readers and also for policymakers that ILK, it plays a significant role in ecosystems. If we were to compare with that of the Malawi team, I feel like the Thai report hasn't really given significance to ILK and its relationship to ecosystems. The ILK plays a role when we talk about commodities in the sea and coastal area, and we talk about the resources in terms of communities, but we haven't really talked about the ecosystem relationship. So I think the challenge will be different from the Malawi team. And when the Malawi team talks about the challenge in lobbying, and I think for Thailand, maybe it's even more challenging. As for the next one, which is the 5.6, we will talk about options for policies and governance and ecosystem management. As for chapter 6, it's about strategic partnerships and initiatives to encourage engagement and initiatives. And then we talk about communication and issues that are emerging recently related to ecosystem and nature. And we talk about capacity building, and another chapter on that we're working on now is a timeline, like a timetable. In terms of the implementation and lessons learned, because ILK isn't a word that is familiar to most people. So it's more known among the anthropologists who work on local communities. So what our challenge is to communicate in simple terms for people to understand clearly. So we're using short videos to depict ILK and also the process using ILK in NEA. And then we have produced short videos before organizing workshops. Before the workshops, we have presented these videos, and BestNet and also the website of NEA, you have included the videos on their website. UNESCO has been helping in broadcasting the video, but our questions is how to disseminate these videos in a wider among a wider audience. That's our questions. It's a question and also another lesson learned that videos are quite effective. And people can understand, can see the picture that sea and coastal communities, like what their lifestyles are and what the knowledges are, without having to explain in length using videos and moving picture. Another lesson learned is the team that is a leading author team. They are familiar with the issue of sea people, but if we talk about small scale fishers, it was clear that we needed to create a sense of familiarity. We need to establish a sense of trust and to penetrate into the communities because these data need to be reviewed, and we need to collect data and interpret them, identifying the gaps in knowledge. This is an example of a book that one of our teams of leading authors have published. it would be the memo, the diagram showing how to memorize the places and how to distinguish different sea species and how to look to differentiate different areas, which the methods are different from those of the science. We have this knowledge, we have articles, we have books that are already existing. And the project that we are working on, besides academic knowledge, we are using this knowledge and trying to communicate them that biodiversity or the understanding of ecosystems really interlink the nature with culture. We have existing culture that belong to the sea people, the fishermen, and encouraging how to preserve and conserve these culture and how to sustainably use natural resources and how to humbly exist among nature. We have some literature that are existing, and in addition to academic resources, we also have workshops that we have conducted among communities. So it was quite smooth sailing. As for lessons learned, there's a guideline that have been done by UNESCO and ILK on familiarizing ourselves with communities and how to invite them and their participation when we are working on a research. And if we have our connection with ILK holders, then it's much easier to access to these communities, and there is better willingness, and it saves time as well, because we have they're quite voluntary to work with us if there's a sense of familiarity existing. And we have learned how to create a sense of familiarity, of how to be able to build trust among us, and how to invite diversity from different groups, including women, housewives, the youth groups, and also the elderly. Each group has their own interests and their different focuses. Getting to know them allow us to differentiate and understand their distinct bodies of knowledge. Another part is that how the fact that we have worked with these communities before, we already have a good sense of partnership, and we have connections with schools in the area and different groups that are not directly IPLC, but working together with IPLC. Another lesson learned that we thought was important was the fact that different community has different expectations, different worries, and I put many S here because there's the expectations that are diverse, and the questions is how to manage these expectations, because we have entered as an outsider, a researcher, encouraging their participation. They might think that the problems that they are facing will be solved, and we feel that we are happy that the project will be connecting them with policymakers, but the question is how. We think that opportunities created by this project that working with ILK will allow that the issue of ILK, which may be small issues or marginalized issues in the society, as well as in the academia of Thailand. We believe that this will increase the visibility of ILK in the fields. Another opportunities that we saw is the fact that this project has no fixed approach. There is no fixed steps even though we have guidelines, step 1, 2, 3, but these are not mandatory. And the methodology also depends on context in each area and also the significance of each community. Another issue is how mobilizing knowledge also depend on context and opportunities that we choose to bring. We can really use the knowledge as the leading factor. Yesterday, we talked about events like the tsunami is an opportunity that the mass, the mainstream, and also policymakers to pay attention to sea and coastal communities, and also the knowledge hidden in the 7-layer waves folklore that was always neglected. But the very folklore has allowed the sea people to survive. This could be seen as an opportunity that arises while we're working. Another opportunity is the interdisciplinary approaches and transdisciplinary approaches as for sciences or anthropologies. Different discipline would focus on their own and using their own tool, but this very project allows opportunities of learning and not limited to the academic, but it invites transdisciplinary approaches as well as inviting exchanges and learnings, including languages, and also creating awareness, allowing us to see questions and limitations of each discipline in allowing new opportunities for learning. And another opportunity that we have identified is how we have provided support as well as documents, books, and guidelines or different media that have been from the UN as well as our friends, our partners, our different countries. Like today, we are learning from Malawi, which have progressed all the way through the next stage of the trialogue. As for Thailand, we are considering of how to organize a trialogue and considering which policy to choose and how to choose organizations, different sectors and communities. We're hoping to learn from Malawi as well. As for challenges, the challenges, as I have talked about before, that it is still very much marginalized. How, the question is how, even among NEA colleagues, how to make our partners understand about how should we present ILK, and for the people to understand the significance of ILK and to be included in NEA. What we thought was significant, like we talked about before, that the video represents thousands of words. So we think that we should have data that are tangible, evidence-based, and case studies that show ILK that are hidden in communities that have been very much neglected. Another part is that how when we work with networks, indigenous conservation networks, continuously, like PASD, Pakakayo Association for Sustainable Development, they have been working on indigenous people in highlands and farming in highlands area, getting to know different plant species and animal conservation. It allows the expansion of the scope of IP conservation. And so we have a clear direction of work Another question is how to increase visibility through different means. We might need to consult younger generation that they have different social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Visibility might be what communicate through many channels. Here, the challenge when we work with communities, we think this is researchers that work with communities are facing, because each community, they have their own concern. For each community, they have different position in terms of power structure, and they have their own tension with the external organizations too. That's why I was saying how establishing trust and the issue of access plays an important role. This project expands along 4 to 5 years before we push through the policy level. So we think that the community level is very critical for us to maintain the trust. And another challenge, Malawi talked about lobbying and or convincing the policymakers, like biologists might see that the issues of biology have been neglected for a long time. If we talk about developing countries and the economic growth, especially post-COVID era, that impacting the growth of tourism and other trends to slow down. So in order to restore it, rely on many factors, because the economic growth will come first, pushing biodiversity as well as community concerns to be on the side. Our questions is to how to communicate the issues, which I think is complex, because our issues have always been marginalized and pushed on the side. How to communicate to the mass, to the public, to different groups, maybe influencers that could help us to expand this knowledge. We might be negotiating not only with the environment related departments, but we can talk about other ministries, different agencies, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture or the Ministry of Tourism, that they are focusing on increasing the growth of tourism. That is our challenge of how to communicate biodiversity on this level. As for methods and approaches, we talked about the workshops that we have organized, as well as the approaches in anthropological way. We have connected with the youth and the elderly between them, so they can get to know each other. We have also connected different communities. We have connected fishermen to communicate with highland communities, so they can get to know a different set of beliefs, different ecosystems, so they realize the significance of different areas. These are many ways that we have increased the engagement of community members, that we have seen different herbs that the youth have been taking interest, and they have become community researchers themselves. Another part that we would like to both present and also get feedback from Malawi, as well as other people, leading authors, and also from both Thailand and Malawi. As for the report, the assessment report that had showed just now, different chapters, that other chapters there was only one small chapter in ILK, but our question is how to integrate ILK into other chapters as well. We look at the scoping report that we have already completed. Now we are incorporating ILK in different chapters. For example, the national background, which include location and geography, and as well as biodiversity of Thailand, of how the status is now. We think that ILK could be included here in terms of coastal population of IPLCs, of different group of IPLC in coastal areas that have been living in coastal area, including the bodies of knowledge that are existing, to incorporate the bodies of knowledge here. We would like feedback ILK authors to help us provide feedback on how to include ILK in different chapters. Another example is the chapter 5 that talked about classification of marine biodiversity and how scientists have one way of classification. But the interesting is how to include ILK classification, which might count, which include perhaps ecosystems differently than the scientists have been doing. These are all in question marks. Would it be interesting, or would it be too confusing? This is what we like your feedback on, but this was our idea. Or the chapter on economics, we think that we could use the knowledge on calculation, on finances, and also economy, how to include ILK knowledge. For example, nature evaluation, or to evaluate nature. Maybe it's not coming in terms of quantifying, but perhaps we can talk about the stories of Mother Earth to create awareness on ILK, or should we include the multiple value systems here? As for the economic benefits, should we already include some elements of biocultural and spiritual benefits here? Or if you talk about nature-based solution, there also are culture-based solution, communities that have been living with nature to increase sustainability in Thailand. There is been drafting talking about culture protected zone, talking about that a culture might be protected nature here. Should we include these topics here? Or even if we talk about ecosystem services, when we talk about cultural services, should we use indicators from ILK? And these are examples of key questions that we prioritize biodiversity and diversity from local communities, or from the Anthropocene era. The multiple values here, is that significant, or should we talk only about values that are in terms of economic and capitalistic? That is some of our questions here. Or the fact that some of the IPLC comparing the sea as their rice pot. And that's our questions of how to, the lens of ILK, allowing us to see the value of nature in different perspectives. Another key question is how to address multiple value system in the policy level and how to encourage engagement, the management here. These are some of the examples, the opportunities of and challenges that the Thai team has been facing. Thank you. Thank you, Ajahn Narumon. We have a lot of insights from Malawi and Thai, and it's allowed us to reflect in the next sessions. Let me invite both Kun Joseph and Kun Noah. We will incorporate them into one session to reflect on the information that we have from the two presentations of how to collect and reflect on the ILK in the NEA process, leading to author selection. Please, Joseph and Noah, maybe 10 to 10 minutes to reflect and have a consulting session here. Thank you, please.
Thank you so much, RK, and thank you so much to Addis and Narumon for those very, very interesting and inspiring presentations. I think from our side, we are going to reflect, to refrain from reflection. So because the idea behind this dialogue was for, as Dr. Pech earlier indicated, was for us to learn from each other, mainly to explore some of the opportunities that the National Ecosystem Assessment provide when working with indigenous and local knowledge, and even explore opportunities for mutual learning or peer-to-peer learning, and even potentially for collaboration between our two countries. And as Ajahn Narumon has well indicated on how to navigate some of the different challenges that you are facing from each other, and probably finally to challenge and aspire each other as we go along the National Ecosystem Assessment journey. So if this is okay with everyone, I would love to open the floor to Thai team and the Malawi team to have a dialogue about some of the issues that were raised. In case you have any question, please raise your question to the team. If not, happy to pose some of the question. And Noor, I don't know whether you are, okay, I can see, I've seen you. Yes, and Noor is here with me. So after some few minutes, I'll also pass over to you. Maybe Noor, as we wait for any question, so participant, you can raise your hand or unmute. This is a dialogue, so we don't want to influence the nature of the discussion. Please feel free to interact with each other. I don't know, Noor, whether you have like one or two reflection you'd like to give before we proceed.
Absolutely. Or this is just mainly an expression of gratitude for the tremendous work that has happened in both Malawi and in Thailand. And both the presentations of Alice, of Miss Alice and Dr. Narumon really present the complex and fruitful efforts that really come from combining different knowledge systems and working across different knowledge systems to strengthen our understanding of nature and its contributions to people, and to strengthen the scope of the assessment going forward for the evaluation stage. And just to reiterate that we are constantly learning from the Malawi team and from the Thailand team to better understand how we can bring these knowledge systems together for the assessment process. And so I think some of the questions, especially that the Dr. Narumon raised, we've taken a note of them, and we hope they can be discussed, that we can open this discussion between our colleagues to reflect on some of these questions, and also for us as UNEP-WCMC and UNESCO to continue providing technical and methodological support to help address some of these questions directly. That's just a quick reflection, and back to you, Joseph, to facilitate the exchange session between the Malawi team and the Thailand team.
Thank you so much, Noor, for that great reflection. I don't know whether there's any question or reflection coming from Malawi. There's one question from Achan Narumon. Achan Narumon, would you prefer to ask your question maybe verbally?
I have typed my questions in the chat, but I would like to hear from the Malawi team when you talk about the methodology that is inclusive for science and ILK. Does it mean that scientists or groups that are working on ecosystem and biodiversity to actively involve in organizing workshops and ILK activities?
Malawi team, anyone would like to respond to this?
Okay, let me start. Thank you for the good question. Actually, yes, we are trying as much as possible to get the scientists involved in all activities under ILK, starting from the planning and probably conducting the actual activities. First of all, we thought I should say that it's actually difficult, for knowledge system to work synergistically because of the differences between their systems, which brings challenges in terms of developing the capacities of the bearers of the knowledge systems. So it requires actually the engagement of the scientists, the experts from different disciplines to enable them to understand the holistic knowledge that is held by the elderly ILK holders and also the local communities. So we tried as much as possible to get the scientists involved in ILK's activities. Our first engagement, when we visited the local communities, we went there with the mind of learning from the ILK holders, the elders, the local communities. So we had our scientists with us to learn what they have. So it actually helped because the scientists began to understand the aspect of valuing the ILK and how are we going to synthesize the information that we've gotten from the field. So it made things easier for the two knowledge groups to work together. So it has now become a very smooth thing as they are working together. And maybe my friends can also add on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alice. I think you have captured everything, but I just want to emphasize the fact that the first authors that we had when we were just beginning, when we are calling for expression of interest, are mostly scientists from the university. And when we are starting engaging with ILK knowledge holders, they are the ones who were really engaged with doing even implementing activities that relates to ILK in Malawi. So we have been working together, even the ILKs being given responsibilities in the activities that we have been conducting with them. So Alice actually captured most of the aspect that we did in relation to engagement of scientists and local knowledge holders. Thank you.
Can I just add a few things?
Yes, Crispin, go ahead.
Yes, I think one good example of scientists and the knowledge holders or indigenous knowledge holders inclusivity would be when we went to Sanje and we discovered that they have this route which is used is called Tabalaba, but it has a lot of healthy related aspects which they use. And we noticed that as scientists, perhaps what we will do is to come up with the scientifically or innovative ways of how that tuber can be developed. It's basically a medicine that local people are using. But we also noted that there are people that come and collect the root to go and to take it out of this country. But as local scientists, how can we work together with the indigenous knowledge holders to develop the same tuber or the same medicine locally, but scientifically approved or scientifically tested within the country? That would be one of the best ways of using science or interfacing science and local knowledge. And we also discovered the use of culture. When we went to Sinja in Ilongwe, we discovered that they have this belief in ancestral spirits. How can we as scientists use those kind of belief to come up with innovative ways of helping people to achieve their livelihoods in the local areas? So this is where you actually use science or interface science and the local knowledge. So we couldn't have known that if we had not visited local knowledge borders. So that's one good example, I think, where the interface between science and the local knowledge borders is very visible. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Crispin. If it's okay, I would like to also reflect a little bit on this question from the global perspective. And thanks you so much, Malawi, for these interesting responses. I think, Achan Nadmon, this question is also connected to the question that you posed during your presentation, how to convince the NEA colleagues and the policymakers. And here maybe I'll focus on the NEA colleagues. And I feel like, as you clearly indicated, that indigenous and local knowledge is not well understood even within the science community. So maybe because of the flexibility of the national ecosystem assessment, if we take participatory approach, and this is what Alice, Lydian, and Crispin are alluding to, because what I've observed in several countries that have been in the scoping process, when you tag along, especially the lead authors in the RK activities, and they see what we mean, for example, when you try to talk about indigenous valuation of ecosystem assessment, they start having like a better picture of what we mean in terms of indigenous and local knowledge component. Maybe it's not a solution, but it can be a start point to help us, them to understand and to accept the importance and the relevance of this knowledge when it comes to biodiversity conservation. Open, I can see your hand is up. Please take the floor. And Nud, I don't know whether you also wanted to intervene, so maybe I'll come back to you because I saw you switch your camera on. Thank you. Yes, Open, we are struggling to hear you. I don't know, maybe it might be helpful to switch on off your video. It might increase the bandwidth. Yes, I think maybe there's a problem with the network. Can I request you to drop your video and maybe it might help? Yes, can you hear me? Can you confirm whether you can hear me? Yes, yeah. Okay, try now. I think maybe it might be a bit better. Please go ahead. Open, I'm sorry, we are struggling to hear you. I don't know, like maybe you. Yes, we are losing you. We can't hear you very well. would you please allow me to, maybe as we try whether the network is going to improve, maybe come back to you in 2 minutes, if that's okay with you? Okay, thank you so much. Yes. No, did you want to interject at this point? I see there's some few other questions from on the chat.
This was just a very brief reflection on I guess on engaging scientists in the ILK process. So if we think of lots of our exchanges as being an exchange of stories, we find that our colleagues from the science field often benefit as well from meeting with business leaders to hear about their successes, for example, and their stories in the business field. Our colleagues in our colleagues in science will also benefit from meeting with political leaders and people in the political sphere. And while people in the business sector or policy leaders, they themselves don't necessarily base all of their decisions on science or follow the scientific process, but their stories are absolutely essential for us to constantly contextualize our knowledge and to ensure that the questions we are answering are relevant. And therefore, indigenous and local knowledge holders also fall into the same category of people who hold certain types of knowledge that don't necessarily follow the scientific process. However, this knowledge is extremely rich and valuable in its context, and therefore scientists will benefit greatly from engaging with indigenous and local knowledge holders, representatives of indigenous communities and different local indigenous peoples and local communities, same way they would benefit from meeting with business leaders and policy leaders. So this was just an analogy or a metaphor that I hope can put a certain point across. And back to you, Joseph.
Thank you so much, Knowles. And the main challenge now is how to bring these successful stories through the National Ecosystem Assessment. And this is the question that, in connection to this, I wanted to pose to the team that we don't necessarily have to answer right now. Because indigenous and local knowledge, when we want to capture these successful stories, or what Achan Narumon was talking about, evidence-based knowledge or case studies, some of this indigenous and local knowledge is held in different forms. Others in art forms, poems, songs, and dances. And for example, during the Malawi trial, we experienced this. So how do we capture this also form of art forms in terms of knowledge to the National Ecosystem Assessment and capture it to be accepted by the scientists and the policymakers? Because it's also quite important, especially when you're trying to look at the awareness creation, intergenerational knowledge transfer of this knowledge. We don't have to answer right now this question, but it's one of the questions that we may want to think about in the assessment process. I can see the time is moving. If it's agreeable with Node, I would suggest that we shift to the trialogue and maybe pass over to Dr. Lillian, because I know also Dr. Pech and the team are quite keen to hear about this process. RK, back to you. I wish we had more time, but we are going to try to create more these exchange forums. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Noah, for joining our discussion. Because of the limited time, like Kun Joseph mentioned, that it's regretful that too bad that we do not have more time now. But let's move on to a different presentation on a significant issue of how to trialogue or the three-way discussion in Malawi. Let me hand over the microphone to Dr. Lillian. Can you please present this topic here? I will be operating the slides from here, and Dr. Lillian, you can simply say next, and I will be operating the slides for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you. I'll share some insights in terms of how we did our trialogue in Malawi. Just go next. Next. Hello, next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So just as an introduction, the trialogue is a methodology that facilitates the multi-stakeholder engagement that is applied by BaseNet. And it goes beyond bringing together the traditional science, policy gaps, and bringing together the three communities of practice. So we have scientists, policymakers, and practitioners. And normally the local communities, for Malawi, we don't have indigenous people, but we have local communities. So the local communities are among the practitioners. So you can see that diagram. It's a trialogue because it involves three different knowledge holders. So we have the policymakers, the practitioner, and scientists. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Hello, next slide.
There may be a bit of a delay, Lillian.
Okay, so thank you. So the most important stage of the trialogue is the planning stage. And at this stage, you need to actually allocate adequate time to make sure that you plan comprehensively. So in your planning, you need to develop a concept for your trialogue. And this concept has to provide a clear purpose why you need to conduct the trialogue, and also with clear objectives and expected outcomes. So planning can be at two levels. You can have the national team planning, make the national plan, and then you share, especially with our partners, like in our case, we had UNEP WCMC, UNESCO supporting us, including UNDP. So as you're planning, as you continue planning, there is also need to have stakeholders selected, the stakeholders whom you are going to involve in your trialogue. So considering gender in the stakeholders to be involved is also very key. So when you are selecting the ILK knowledge holders, you also have to consider gender. In our case, we involved the ILK holders whom we have been involving from the time we started with the framing workshop and also following up activities. We also engaged some policymakers from different government departments, especially those which are involved in natural resource management. And we had scientists. And within the scientists, we also had, these included those experts who are part of them are the authors for the different chapters, and also some stakeholders from the private sector. This is very important to make sure that you have all the knowledge holders available for the trialogue. And you also have to invite them in good time so that they can actually confirm for their presence during the trialogue. So the pictures we are seeing is the trialogue in process, which we had in the country. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so as I said, planning is very comprehensive. Once you have identified your stakeholders, you also have to develop a program for the trialogue. So in this program, you have to spell out all the activities that you intend to conduct during the trialogue. If you're going to have an opening session, which normally we tend to use the higher level delegation, like in our case, we use the Vice Chancellor for the Longo University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, which is an implementing institution for this project, as Alice presented earlier on. So in the program, you also share the laws and responsibility for each facilitator. So you identify people who are going to be involved in facilitating different activities, and you give them their roles and responsibilities. You also highlight the approach for each activity. So if you want to have group discussions, you also highlight which activity is going to involve group discussion. If it's just going to be presentation, which activities will just be presented like PowerPoint. And also, if you are also going to have a field visit, like in our case, we had a field visit to one of the local communities to learn from them. So you also have to highlight all the approaches that you are going to use and engaging the local community themselves to be involved in the planning and also to take lead when it comes to the field activity. And the other thing, you have to also to gather all the training materials that are required for your trialogue. And the next other thing is to identify the moderator for the sessions, all the sessions. A moderator who's conversant about issues of environment and who can ably, articulate the issues as you are conducting the trialogue. The venue also is very important to consider a good venue where you can be able to accommodate all the participants that you have planned to invite in the trialogue. And prior to the trialogue day, you have to make sure that you set up the seating plan so that you can be able to interact and dialogue and also set up the planning sessions. So in our case, when we are planning for the dialogue, we had round tables where people could sit, but we also had a panel discussion. So the high level, the other top picture is a panel discussion where experts were actually presenting some of the relevant issues concerning the trialogue. We also had group work. So we have the cards where a group could put their issues and put on the poster, on the board for everyone to read. And we also have a plenary session where all the groups could go and see what other groups are doing. So this also has to be done prior to planning. You have to make sure that everything has been arranged so that when it comes to execution, you don't have any challenge. Next slide, please. Next, please. Next slide. Thank you. So as it continues on this slide, is continue talking about the trialogue, conducting the trialogue. When we are dividing people in the groups, we make sure that we mix the groups. So the groups were comprising of the local knowledge holders, the scientists, the policymakers, so that they can be able to interact and share experiences on how they are managing biodiversity in their area, and also from the science aspect as well as from the local community perspective. We also encourage learning from each other and valuing contribution of each and every member so that everyone is comfortable to share their ideas. And in other cases, we could also translate to local language, because some of the local knowledge holders could not be able to follow in English, so we could translate. Translation was also provided so that we can all be on the same, common understanding. In terms of time allocation for the dialogue, we make sure that you provide quality time for meaningful dialogue. You need to be flexible enough when you're conducting some of the activities. When somebody is speaking from local knowledge, even the scientists, you have to provide them with adequate time so that they can express themselves. And every day, there is need also to plan for reflection meetings so that you can assess what has gone well and what has not gone well, so that in the next day you improve and do better. Next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry, so the picture you are seeing is during the plenary, during the groups people are discussing. So even after the trialogue, when you are going towards the end, the last day, you have to highlight the post-trialogue activities. Like in our case, during the trialogue, what we are doing is we wanted to share the ecosystem scoping report status, and also to allow local communities to input into the scoping report, especially the policy question, defining the policy question together so that they can be inclusive. Issues of the local communities should also be taken on board. And so we had to provide information about what next from the trialogue. So apart from coming up with a report for the trialogue, they was also need to highlight the next step, that is from the trialogue, we incorporated all the comments into the scoping report and fine-tuned the scoping report, share with other stakeholders for input, and thereafter submitted it to the biodiversity platform for approval. And as Alice indicated in the earlier presentation, the scoping report has been approved, and then the next stage we also highlighted that from approval, then we go to evaluation, collecting the necessary information from different sources of literature, different research that have been published, including those that are still not published, the grey literature, and even the local knowledge that we have gained from the framing workshop that we have had, including also the follow-up trips that we had and the trialogue. So we have also shared some success stories. We have stories on the UNESCO website, stories on BaseNet website. So all those success stories have been shared about Malawi, and we also shared the impact of trialogue on the assessment, the scoping stage of the assessment, the national ecosystem assessment. Yeah, so the picture you are seeing there is the participants to the national trialogue, the trialogue activity that we had in Malawi. Next slide, please. I think that's the last. Next. Yeah, so as Alice indicated, we had we had a lot of activities that we conducted. The last slide, of course, go to the last slide. I will just explain on the pictures. Our trialogue involved field visits. So we went to the field and also interacted with the communities, and we had some role play, some drama, and communities showcasing some of the benefits that they get from the forest which they are protecting, showcasing the mats that they are getting, raw materials from the forest. That's the diagram which is below. And up there is a drama where the community was showing us how they have used some of the species, the tree species in the forest as medicine, to allow them to, if you want to have a male child and you're always having a female children, you can use some of the medicinal plants in the forest to come to actually get what the desired sex of child that you want. And the picture which is below is just showing the whole team, the whole, participants that were involved at the community level, to show where we actually learned from the communities on how they are managing their forest and their governance system, and also how they are enforcing their bylaws to make sure that they protect their forests for their benefit. Yeah, thank you so much. Zikomo. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Lillian. Thank you so much. And from Thailand, the Thai team are discussing of how we would organize the trialogue as well as you have done. It's a great example. We have reached the conclusion of today's meeting, which is a peer-to-peer exchange between Thailand and Malawi. We have examples and we see the status of each country. And we hope that in the chat, many people are talking now. We have started the conversation seriously, and we are we will be sharing emails so that we can share the documents from this meeting with you, and hope to we start creating a network to encourage discussion and also information exchange through email and other channels. And last, I'd like to invite Dr. Lillian again to say a few words to conclude the meeting on behalf of Dr. John. Please, Dr. Lillian.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Dr. Lillian.
Okay,
right.
Thank you very much. Can I go ahead? Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope I was expecting questions on the trial. Anyway, time is against us. Maybe let me just close on behalf of the Malawi. That would be great.
Sorry?
Colleagues in the room, we can't hear you very clearly. Just to confirm, are we waiting for something specific?
Okay, no. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. So we were waiting for some comments, some questions on the trial presentation, or else maybe because I was given the floor to close, to give closing remarks.
If there is no questions from the participants from Thailand team now, I trust that you are taking time to write down your questions because of the limitation in terms of the internet network. Let me invite Dr. Lillian to give us a closing speech. Thank you, Dr. Lillian.
Okay, sorry to disturb. Actually, there's one question on the chat from Achan Narmon. Sorry for that.
Yes, of course. Right, one moment.
Sure. Thank you. Can Thank you very much for that question. As I indicated in the beginning, that when you are planning for a trialogue, it is very important to set out clear objectives of the trialogue. So in our case, the objective of the trialogue was to raise awareness among the participants, including the local communities and the local knowledge holders on the trialogue, what we have already done, and also to make sure that they put on their input into the policy questions. So we had draft policy questions, which Alice also highlighted during her presentation, the broader and the specific policy question based on the ecosystem types that we are focusing on. So the issues which were raised, some of the issues were raised from the participants after presentation of the draft scoping report and also the background of the project, while other issues were raised when we are trying to learn from each other. So it was not necessarily us bringing out the issues. Most of the issues that came out from the interaction that we had amongst the participants, the scientists, the policymakers, as well as the local communities whom we engaged in this trialogue. I hope I have responded. My colleagues from Malawi, Aris, Chris, you can come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, let me just also add on what Lillian has said. So actually, apart from what Lillian has said, the main focus was also to get those knowledge systems, the policymakers, the practitioners, which includes the ILK as well as scientists, to validate the policy questions, to make sure that the scoping report captures what they really want to be in that scoping report, as long as the policy questions are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Alice for having added to the reflection. There's another question in the chat. Let me do it in Thai. So in Thailand, we had somewhat similar public event to gather input from various stakeholders during the drawing scoping report stage, but we didn't follow trialogue format exactly, and perhaps we didn't have strong representative from ethnic groups. That we didn't follow the dialogue format exactly, and perhaps we didn't have strong representative from different ethnic groups or IPLC. This is both a comment and explanation from Dr. Pet. Does anyone would like to add to what the Pet has said?
Is it from Thailand?
This is a comment from Thailand.
Yes. I understand the comment. We also didn't just go straight to the trialogue. We had several stakeholders meetings where we also were involving different stakeholders when we are drafting our scoping report. So the trialogue has come towards the end of our scoping report, just to make sure that we bring together all the relevant stakeholders under one roof, so that together we can reach a consensus on the policy question that we have. Yeah, so we are in the same. They are in the right track. We also had several of those stakeholder consultations. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alice. Thank you both, Dr. Lillian and Dr. Alice. I hope that if there's any other questions, is there any other questions both from Thailand and Malawi? If there is no questions, I let me move on to the conclusion. Can I again invite Dr. Lilian to give us a closing speech to today's meeting? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. On behalf of the Malawi team, I just want to thank UNESCO, UNEP, WSMC for bringing us together so that we can share some experiences on what we are doing in the National Ecosystem Assessment project that we are conducting, both Malawi and Thailand. And also let me thank Thailand for choosing Malawi to share experiences. We really appreciate. Though we have shared our experience in terms of the trilogue and also the scoping report, we have also learned a lot from your side. We have, among others, we have learned that in your case, you and ours, we share some of the challenges, like the expectation that the communities might have after consulting them, after engaging them in the trialogue, as well as in the framing workshops that we have conducted. We also have the similar, challenges that communities might be expecting something from government. What is very important is to make sure that when engaging them, you have to be clear that this is an assessment, is we are getting knowledge to make sure that we have the indigenous knowledge incorporated into the scoping report together with the scientific knowledge. And this will help us to lobby the policymakers to include indigenous, the summary for policymakers that will come from the assessment report. I was also very keen to learn more about the Thailand, the way they have incorporated the evaluation. This is also something as a country we have learned. And also, the use of engaging with schools that are closer to the communities, also to share some of the documentation like textbooks that we have highlighted. That is also a learning point for us that we can even do much better after this engagement. We really appreciate and we look forward that this will not just be the beginning and the end, but we'll continue interacting so that we can together, make it to the final stage. I know for the recently I had the privilege to be at the 10th plenary session for the EPBS. We really have a great job. It's not an easy task to do the national ecosystem assessment. It's just like we are doing the global assessment reporting. So we really need to show commitment and exchanging ideas. It can help us more to improve on in our case, our evaluation stage until we come up with a report. With these few remarks, let me thank everyone for your participation and your commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lilian. And I'd like to ask Dr. Pet to say a few words on behalf of the Thailand team. Please, Dr. Pet. Thank you, Dr. Pet. That is the closing of our event, and just like the post-COVID activity, we are asking everyone to turn on the camera to take a photo together. If you are okay with it, please turn on your camera so we can have a photo together. And maybe participants in the room, we can come inside the camera and we can have one photo together. Let's wait for everyone to turn on the camera. Okay. Let's wait for a few more participants, maybe half a minute. Dr. Thamasak, would you like to turn on your camera, Mr. Lovemore? Miss Eto? Okay.
Unfortunately, I needed to join using my phone. Otherwise, for yeah, sure.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for participating today. Thank you, Kun Joseph, Kun Noor, for drafting the agenda today, and also for facilitating and inviting for us two teams to meet. Thank you, Dr. Pet and Dr. Narimon, the leaders of our team here. And thank you all the lead authors here from Thailand and from Malawi. Thank you, the project manager and project coordinator. Thank you, the interpreter, for the vivid interpretation. And today, thank you. And Joseph, do you have anything to add before? I'd like for you to have last words.
Thank you so much, RK. That's like a very, very kind word from you. So maybe just a word of gratitude and perhaps one challenge to the lead team. First, let me start by acknowledging the UNESCO Bangkok office for your great support in organizing this hybrid session, and then for the Thailand team and the Malawi team for the great exchange and openness to share your experience. Is a mutual learning journey, and equally we are learning a lot from you, and we look forward to continue supporting and also learning from you as well. And then I would like to finish by posing a challenge specifically to 4 people. Dr. Pech, Acha Narumon, Addis, I think now has received a new title, Dr. Addis, and Dr. Lovemore. This is a new start, as Lillian indicated. So let's maintain this momentum, and perhaps the 4 people, you can start sort of like a dialogue. So in case, for example, you have some clarification or a question, or you want to navigate something or understand how other countries have navigated the process, this could be a continual process, and then probably we can follow up more on this for the next global workshop. But in case you need any form of support, please, as usual, don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Noor, for all the support. I actually just remember I forgot to introduce Noor, but also he puts on a lot of multiple caps. He is the lead of the stakeholder engagement, but also the focal point for the Malawi. And also he supports the RK from the UNEP WCMC, a very nice colleague to work with. So Noor, we are very grateful for all your support. Thank you so much, and good day to everyone.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, all colleagues.
Till
See you
next
soon.
time.
Thank you so much.
Good day.
Dr. Alice, congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations and good luck. Diana, thank you very much, Alke.